Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining me. I don't even know how to begin this one. We're just going to talk about the week. Some horrible events, some smack myself in the head. I can't believe what I'm reading events. I've been horrified, disappointed, but then I've been enlightened too. I've had to take a lot of reflection, as I hope many did, in how we react to things, the words that we say, the things that we do, the lines that we draw, the boundaries we won't cross. In essence, our moral fortitude, our reactionary responses, all that and more has been this week. If you don't know what I'm leading up to, let me just break the ice, crack the egg, and say we're going to talk about the shooting of Charlie Kirk. It was an assassination. On September 10th, Charlie Kirk, a conservative activist and Turning Point USA founder, was fatally shot during a public speaking event at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. He was 31 years old. As a political commentator, he often addressed students in universities, and at this one, there was approximately 3,000 attendees. This was part of his America Comeback Tour. The incident happened at about 12:23 p.m. He was transported to the hospital, but nothing could be done. This shooting was captured on video by numerous attendees. It was done live in front of everyone there. His wife and children were attendants of this event, and there were minors in the audience also. Being a public event outdoors, lots of people in attendance. There were people behind the platform he sat on, there were people to the right, to the left. The shooting that was captured on video was very graphic, and it quickly spread across social media. It was almost as if we all saw it live as it was happening. And if anybody has seen that footage, well, it took my breath away. It's not something I would ever want to see. And before anyone gets the wrong idea and starts to come at me that perhaps I support the views of Charlie Kirk, I can clearly tell you I don't. I can also tell you that many people have not even bothered to ask before condemning me for saying outright and publicly, whenever asked, that violence is never the answer. I'll state now and probably forever that I can't support what happened to Charlie Kirk, regardless of his beliefs, regardless of any word he said or any opinion he projected. I support his right to say it, just as I support mine and everyone else's right to oppose it. But I condemn strongly using violence to silence it. There's been a lot about this, a lot. And it has pit a lot of people against each other. No one could actually deny the divide that we all feel right now. This incident has been turned into another us versus them, another they did it and we're going to retaliate another, it's all the left side. Or it's, if it was in a month ago in Minnesota, it would be the right. It's all the right side who's doing it. It's everyone. It's not left or right. It is radicalization on both sides. And it's caused by the acceptance of continual violent rhetoric on the social medias, in the media platforms, even the big ones, who sensationalize headlines, who like to point fingers, who just love pitting people against each other because it's great content. It's not great content. It's irresponsible. You don't have to care. You don't. And some people point out all the time that he was speaking, he was being asked about gun violence, and Charlie Kirk has a strong opinion about gun violence and has made comments about, the acceptance of death in order to keep our guns. And that clip is played often. And I understand that when kids are dying, and kids died that same day, the same day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, there was a school shooting. And not much was said about it. And I understand the angst, and I understand everybody saying, oh, well, if he didn't care, why should I? But I do, because I don't think violence is the answer. It's not so much in praise of Charlie Kirk. It's just in a hope to save our own humanity. So I'm not putting anybody down who doesn't feel bad about it. I even support the rights of those who celebrated about it, although I personally couldn't do that. But I strongly believe that my rights end where yours begin, and your rights end where mine begin. Because you can't just ignore the other side. You don't have to accept it. You can oppose it, but you don't kill it. That's not an appropriate response, ever. That's my point. So don't misstrew it. Don't try to make it like I don't care about the rights of others, whether it be the LGBT community, transgender, gun rights, women's rights. I got a uterus. I don't like what Charlie Kirk says about it. I don't like that he wants to regulate my uterus. I don't like the fact that he called me a murderer if I believe in pro-choice. I don't like it. I'm not going to take his right away to say it. Definitely not going to violently make the answer killing somebody. I don't think you have to feel bad. I don't care if you celebrated it. I really don't. But what I would like everyone to do is actually not actually support the fact that anybody deserves to die over it. That's all I'm saying. But that's me. You're going to feel the way you want to feel. And that's the point of this, is that you all have to understand where your rights end and others begin. And I don't mean to lecture, but I had to say this because my DMs have been horrible. I've been told I've been radicalized. I've been told that I'm now a Republican, apparently, and that I actually, because I didn't want him to die, because I don't think anyone should die, regardless of who it is. Put anybody in that chair. Anybody in that chair. And I'd be saying the same thing. It's not that I have great empathy. It's that I'm scared. I'll just call it the way it is. The way I see things going and the way I things headed, the violence that is accepted over and over by both sides, It scares the hell out of me. When polled recently, Americans, and this has been going on for a while, let me just give you some statistics, because isn't that what I do? Like, that is what I do, right? So let me just give you a little bit of the statistics lately and how I probably have a good reason. I mean, besides the free speech debate, despite the anti-violence debate that could be done here, I mean, everybody's going to do it, and it's done constantly. And I don't want to, I really am not looking forward to Bear, you're so naive and you got your rose-colored glasses on and you just don't know what the real world is like. Let me tell you what I see the real world is like. This is what I see the real world like. Recent polling reveals widespread concern over rising political violence in America. It's not just me. Okay. A recent poll by Reuters said 63% of Americans believe that the political rhetoric contributes a lot to encouraging violence. The hate speech, the calls for violence, the unfiltered opinion that actually causes damage. You see, because I believe you have the right to say what you want to say, but I draw the line at calls for violence as that being the response for anything. I do. And so do a lot of Americans. And I'm probably speaking around the world too. I have a lot of subscribers from around the world. And I'm talking to you too. These polls are in America, but I'll bet you're tired of violence in your country too. Political violence, us versus them. It doesn't need to be. How do you solve issues when you're always worried about being right? How do you get anything accomplished if you're just worried about beating the other guy? It's impossible. We are currently in an environment that we can get nothing done. Nothing. Only 5% of Americans, when asked, would say that there was little impact from the actual political violent rhetoric that they've been seeing. And these aren't partisan. These are bipartisan numbers. 63% of Republicans, 70% of polled Democrats, and 61% of all independents share the view that political violent rhetoric is contributing and encouraging to the violence we are seeing, not only against political figures, but against many. That's only the Reuters poll. The Morning Consult Desert poll says 86% say the same thing. States United survey says 78%. And this particular poll here, which is from YouGov, which I'm actually going to give you the link in the chat, goes into different particulars about it. And what's happening and what we're seeing and what we're hearing be reported. I will give some of the major media credit that when the video was being posted everywhere of the shooting, that they talked about the shooting without showing it, that they decided not to do that, but that didn't stop it from spreading everywhere and from people using it and celebrating it. It didn't stop people from going online and making videos. I saw videos that people were posting, like, the Instagram and the TikToks, the one you do personally, like with your face up there, like you got something to say, which I agree, everybody has a right to say. But I actually heard people saying things like, who's next? And making lists of political people that should be assassinated. I heard one young woman on TikTok, and I was surprised because she was younger, and I was stunned to hear her say that they should have shot the family too, to stop the spread of his ideas. And it turned my stomach. Sorry. It did. And actually, sorry, not sorry. I think my response was normal. That type of aggression in response of political violence was appalling to me. but it's a symptom. It's a symptom of a sickness in America that we're facing right now, of just making it acceptable. Free speech is about freedom and freedom from government backlash. I get it. But free speech, the First Amendment never protected about a speech that called for acts of violence, because that would be against all of the people. And there is no First Amendment protection for that kind of talk. Now, you all might be surprised, but it just happened that Congress they actually listed a call out for all the heads of the platforms to come up on the Hill and speak to them about this policy. I myself have tweeted repeatedly about calls for a certain, and I'm not going to mention their names because I'm not here to point fingers, and do all of that, or to do my own personal agenda, because it's not about that. It's not about that. But they've called the Twitch CEO up to speak, to answer questions about things that people are complaining about on the platform. And it's all about violent rhetoric, calls for violence, the support of terroristic acts, the calling for additional acts of violence, that kind of speech. Not, I don't like this person. I don't like what they do. I don't agree with them. They're an idiot. You can even curse them out. I don't care. Words don't kill people, do they? Okay, but violence does. And if you're promoting that is an answer to it, then that's where my problem is. Yup. I see that so many people have been fired. And another thing is employer backlash from the pressure of being horrified by people celebrating. And it is true. There were people who were celebrating and saying, laughing and making videos about it as their response. And it horrified some people that they were complaining about it. So there was a big movement to have those people punished. And some employers went that far and did fire people. And before you say that they should be protected by free speech, most employment in the private sector, out in the public here, not government or state, is not protected for free speech because it's at will hiring. And they're allowed to protect their brand. And that's just the truth of it. Okay. So if they decided to fire you because they don't want you representing their company, good luck trying to sue them. You're not going to win. You'll had to have had more protections. I researched the law and I'll pass some of it on to you. Articles that you can check yourself by searching. I don't want to speak out of hat. I'm not no damn lawyer. But this I know from hiring people. In most places, it's at will unless you got a contract. And I can guarantee if you do have a contract with an employer, because you are higher up on the chain, it has a morals clause. And they could have activated it and you could have lost your job. And some did. And those in the public, like Jimmy Kimmel, Disney actually firing Jimmy Kimmel for what he said. It's true. It happens. It's a risk. They're commentators and people say, hey, YouTube can come and slap me right off of the platform right now if they don't like what I say. What am I going to do about it? It's the same thing with employers, and it's even more for those in the public eye. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. The overemphasis of the pushback, the retaliation was great. Our own president blamed the left completely and said there would be retaliation and major investigations into everything, and just said it was all their fault, doing the us versus them. Okay, we saw statements from other politicians and people in public who just did not support the violence and said the same thing I'm saying. Violence is never the answer. Never. We want to protect your right to free speech. I want to be able to say what I want to say. Y'all want to be able to say what you want to say. But do you have the right to take a life because you don't like what somebody's saying? I don't think any of you really agree with that. That's the line. And that's unfortunately what this is about. Yeah, I know, Liam, but we can say Liam has made a comment. Let me just pull it up. Not to pull you out, Liam, because I'm trying not to do that. But he said that none of the employers made a stink about the supporters of the Sandy Hook conspiracy. Actually, some did, because I know I followed that, but not a lot. But Alex Jones has paid for that, has he not? They sued. They did it. And somebody like Candace Owen, who's doing like the same thing with misinformation, and who is now out there using her friend's death to grift and grope the whole situation and to blame another nation for his death. Violent rhetoric, ridiculous misinformation, conspiracies like I can't even, unsubstantiated claims meant to incite riot amongst people and pit people against each other for her own personal grift and agenda. This is what I'm talking about, the us versus them. It does, Liam, and it shouldn't. And well, they're calling the heads of all the social media platforms up to talk about it as to why they are allowing, against their own terms of service in the case of Twitch, which I have spoken on before. Twitch has a terms of service that actually, if you are supporting terrorism or doing violent calls to action and stuff like that, that you get terminated. But they're not applying it to everyone, and they are purposely allowing, it seems, or rather allegedly it appears to be, that they are going out of their way to protect certain political commentators with that rhetoric. Is it financial gain? Is it because they have the same political views? I don't know. But basically, the issue is you can't have a terms of service and just go from one person to the other and apply it with the same situation differently. You just can't, not without being sued. And I guess if they got sued, well, that would change it. But you're right, it takes a suit. It takes actually hurting them where it matters, in the pocket or in reputation. It does, Liam. The backlash is coming forth from both sides pretty strongly. Um, some being us versus them. And it's hard, you know. I think cancel culture is, that's the thing. Um, if it, we've seen it in the gaming industry. We see it when they don't like what somebody says. They don't like what somebody says who's politically opposed to them. They start these cancel cultures, these cancel campaigns, against each other. And you're right. You're talking about it in the chat, and you're right. It's been going on for a long time. And now it's like hitting them also pretty hard. Okay, there is a section, and I'll admit it, as left leaning, everybody knows I'm left leaning. I am not registered as a Democratic anymore. I'll be honest with you, I'm an independent. I actually consider myself a little more centrist these days, and I'll tell you why. It is because of a overzealous extremist part of the leftist party that doesn't act reasonably, in my opinion. That they're incite their inciting rhetoric causes more damage to the party than good. And they're not actually moving us ahead progressively. They're pulling us back by some very distasteful things that make people a target, okay, and make our opinions less valid. And I'm honest with that. I hear you, those of you saying that you're done with both sides. It's so hard. I don't want to pick a side when it's us versus them, when everybody's acting wrong. I get accused of this all the time as being a fence sitter, because when everybody's acting wrong, I won't choose a part. I won't choose a side. I have my strong beliefs. I have my convictions. Ask me, and I will tell you. I don't keep them to myself. But, I think my days of protest are over. I do send my letters to my congressmen and my senators, all of my representatives in my state. Yeah, I do that. I have my opinions on things, and I'm not afraid to voice them. And that's why I'm doing this. I think it's definitely government overreach. I do agree with that comment. Yes, I do. I don't think it's left right, but I do feel the left right now, because that's what's coming out of government currently, is a whole big blame thing. You know, it's definitely trying to pin it on one side or the other and using it for political gain. That's exactly what it is. Just like the commentators and those on X and Twitch and everywhere else that are using this incident, okay, and the turmoil that we're all facing right now, to actually, for the benefit of their own agendas, twisting it, manipulating it, irresponsibility to the max, for personal gain of some way, or political gain of some way, as it is with government. You know, the ruling party is going to use it however they say. But talking about retaliation the way that they're talking isn't going to help it, is it? Because, well, here's another fact. And I don't want to bash one side or the other, but the polls generally say that absolutely, absolutely, violence has increased since 2020, in 2025, 3 times more than it has in the number than in the combined quarter. Yeah. It's the University of Maryland did a research, showed that 150 politically motivated assaults have occurred just in the first half of 2025. That's double 2024. But those attacks are also 3 times as many attacks and plots that have happened in the last 5 years. In the last 5 years, we've had 3 times as many as in the entire previous quarter. You can't say political violence isn't increasing. This is the worst we have had since 1970. And we had national riots, protests, angry. We were protesting the Vietnam War. People were beating each other up, fighting over equal rights. It was horrible from what I've seen in history. And it's worse now. Nobody wants to talk about it or address it. There were 2 assassination attempts on the current president in 2024. Last month, we had the murder of Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman in her husband just in June. The shooting of the Democratic State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. The attack on the CDC headquarters in Atlanta. Assault on the Israeli embassy employees in Washington. Multiple threats, consistent multiple threats against all types of election officials at every level and from every party in half of the states of America. When does it stop? I don't have the answer, except for perhaps take a step back. Perhaps more penalty on the platforms for violent speech. I mean, come on. Did not previously on X, did not most of these large commentators get banned for inciting violence? That was the reason. X, you know, that's when it was Twitter, of course, and it had a different owner. And I'm not saying anything that this is Elon's problem, that he's not doing this. He did bring everybody back under the terms of free speech to see it like if they give him a second chance, whatever, do it with again, because he thought there was overreach. But he does seem to be against the violent rhetoric because he is calling out certain creators. But is that because it aligns with his political view? Because the people that he's calling out are of the opposite political view of his? You know, I could stand behind it if it was truly because he doesn't want violent rhetoric, but then no violent rhetoric. Call out all people, everyone who's doing violent rhetoric, everyone who's raising arms of violence and calls for violence or supporting violence. You know, it's not an answer, no matter how mad we get. Because the facts do come through that there's been a lot of right-wing extremist violence too. This particular event is horrific. And the shooter, Tyler Robinson, does actually appear to be left-leaning. He comes from a family where the dad, apparently, according to the filing, has strong beliefs in conservatism, in support of Trump, and MAGA beliefs, on that side of the political spectrum. We don't know what he talks on individual issues or anything like that, but there was some contention or some political conversations between the two of them, according to what's been said. But I remind you, very little's been said. Very little's been said. Okay. Uh, Too little to blame a whole political side for what happened. It's one person with obvious mental instability. One person, one gun, mental instability, not funded by a party, not a complete organization. Um, Call it what it is. You can't twist it to fit, you know? You just can't. Some political violence has existed longer than just now. I mean, Senator Mark Kelly is out there talking about it, that political violence affects both parties. His wife, Gabby Giffords, was shot while holding office, while running for office. And he was shot too. Previous presidents have all issued statements rejecting political violence, rejecting violence as a solution to solving problems. But how much is social media actually playing in these roles? Is it the instant availability of these statements and these messages that make it go viral, that incite everybody? You see it trending, that's making bigger crowds and making it more acceptable to do abhorrent behavior. I'm sorry, I'm going to call it abhorrent behavior because that's how I felt when I saw it. My opinion, obviously. You don't have to join me in that. But when there's a crowd of you, it's easier to do it, right? When there's no repercussions, it's easier to do it. But what I fear is that pushing back to try to stop political violence, a lot of our personal rights are going to get taken away. I agree when everybody says there's going to be government overreach about this. There will. But what are they going to do when people aren't doing the right thing? When companies aren't even like holding up their own terms of service to stop it because it's making money. When we all gobble it up and eat it up like it's the best entertainment, and including myself, we all watched in horror, but we watch, we feed into it. What's the answer going to be? I don't know. I just know I want to draw that line. And I'm tired of the DMs saying, why aren't you saying anything? So I'm saying something. I'm saying you can get out of my DMs now because you can call me every name in the book, but I don't have to agree. And you can say what you want about what my opinions actually are, but I'm not getting asked, so I'm not saying. But when I get asked, I say, I don't agree with a lot of Charlie Kirk's political platform. Okay? He's a very religious man. He's a Christian nationalist. He comes from a place that I don't. But I'm not going to take his right away to have those opinions or to be that person. It's not human and it's not American. That would take away our whole democratic platform, our whole democracy, if we allow that. I'm not an elitist. I believe what I believe, but I'm not going to say I am absolutely the right opinion on anything. I know. Thank you so much for saying that. Look at the trees. It's been rough. Yes, definitely. I hear you, Shil. I didn't either. I do agree to those that are saying that although Charlie Kirk is being praised for being out there in motivating young Americans to get involved in politics. He was. That was his mission. That was what Turning Point was all about. He brought people into the White House since 2016. He started organizations that energized young people to get politically motivated. It was strategic. It was his plan. It was what he believed. I don't like some of the political message that he was giving them, but it's his right to do it. And we could have done it on the other side. On the left, could have done it too. Democrats could have done the same thing with someone else. But he had every right to do it. I don't agree with it. And he damn well shouldn't have been killed out in public because of it. He did motivate vile. I will say that. But that's the people doing it. I mean, if we all don't start asking questions, you do have to admit that a lot of his words were twisted, don't you? He's great for sound bites, and I think he did it on purpose. He liked to say things that people could sound bite and turn into horrific things. But as I went back, and I did, because I couldn't understand the reaction as much. I knew about his politics briefly. I didn't know much about him, but I went and listened to so many of his interviews and so many of his outreach here in his question and answer things that he did in America here at the universities. But I also listened to one in England. Was it Cambridge or Oxford? I listened to that one, and he got tore up by very educated young people who were very politically motivated and knew more about the subject than he did. And that's when I saw parts of his personality that just wanted to be right, where he would fall back on something you couldn't argue about that wasn't based in fact. You see, Charlie Kirk inherently came from his belief, from his religious background, from his total belief in his Protestant faith. That's where it was coming from. And so he would try to argue, he would argue, not try to argue, he did successfully argue on science and on legal law in America to prove those points, but that's where they were coming from. And so once you fought against him with legalities or scientific or studies or something, he would fall back on that. And that's his right. That's what he believes. He can, But I did do the research, and I don't want to think that he was. He was human. Besides being a political commentator, he was a father, and a husband, and a son, a man, a human being. Okay. And one thing that he said that resonated with me, and it was about an argument that's very close to home for me. It's about pro-choice. And I believe that everybody can believe the way they want about that. But the fact that he wouldn't negotiate even up to a certain amount of weeks about, when life becomes sentient, when actually the medical community is weighing in, that choice could be made without it actually being viability. These kind of things was because of his religious belief, because he does believe that life begins at conception. And if you believe that, then, well, his argument was, regardless of the situation, there are clips going around about him saying he would put a 10-year-old daughter through a pregnancy. And what his point was, is he wasn't going to follow evil with evil. If he believed that destroying life at conception was, in essence, legal murder in America, then he wasn't going to follow an atrocious act like a violation of a human body without consent with just murder. And that's what he said. Like, he said more, and he can believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe it's that harsh. I don't believe that it's that strong, and I don't. But that's my conviction. He can believe what he wants. But I'm using this as an example of how people take and twist the words to incite the meaning, and there was more to it. And I just encourage everybody to go look at the more to it. I still don't believe or follow the same convictions that he does, or support his argument. But There was more to it. That's what I'm saying. Exactly, Grace. This one, can I put, I'm going to put that up. I don't mean to embarrass anybody, but we need to stop dehumanizing those we disagree with. Exactly. Exactly. And that's my point, because that's leading to the violence a lot. Okay. It's not an answer. I agree there's a problem. I agree that there's a lot of people with opinions that hurt whole populations. They target certain populations of America based on their differences. And it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Don't get me wrong. I am not saying that that should be tolerated. Push back on it, yes, but not with death and violence. Please. That diminishes our arguments. That makes us animals. I mean, I'm not going to mince words anymore. That takes humanity out of it. That makes it a vile act. Their words can be vile. Their beliefs can be so harsh and harming to others. But when you answer it with violence, you bring the argument down to the mud. You bring it down to not human. We're supposed to be better than that. We're supposed to strive, all of us individually, to be better than that, to find a compromise, to find a reasonable answer. And it's hard, it's difficult, and we're failing at finding it. But it doesn't mean that violence is the answer. Violence only lets one part win. It's not a compromise. It's not an attempt to find a solution that all parties have to take a little bit. It's completely just wiping out the other side because you don't want to be bothered. I do realize how harmful he is, Liam. I'm not on the fence. I think that Charlie Kirk's message was dangerous. I think his approach to the young people was convincing and very dangerous and radicalizing. But it didn't deserve to be shot for it. Sorry. Not going to go there. Exactly, Grace. It's not a trial against Charlie Kirk. It's trial against violence. It's a trial against answering opposition that way. I hear you. That's my point. But that's it. You see, Liam, when you answer it with a bullet, his rhetoric, what we did is you just exemplified, they just magnified his message. You just made nobody want to hear the other side. They've turned that message that some of us don't agree with into martyrdom. But that's what happens when you support the rhetoric and the violence. You're going to get condemned for it. You're going to condemn everybody with the same beliefs as you for it. I know. I know. I didn't take it personal, believe me. I don't. There is a definite, targeting a vulnerable, growing minds. I get that, you know. And now we've radicalized them with this. Well, not we. I would say it has been radicalized because of what happened. You understand? That's what scares me. Hmm. I don't think many are going to want to listen to the opposing side when violence seems to be the answer. And I just call to those that are actually in power now to actually do something about it, not to be so retaliatory that they make things worse. Currently, the government rhetoric on it is actually quite fearful because it is all about retaliation and blame instead of finding a more appropriate way and just dealing with political violence as a whole. I don't care left or right anymore. I want it just to stop. Exactly. Each side is as bad as the other. is it is, but it is kind of each side as bad as the other when it comes to political violence. That's what I'm saying. We are being separated and divided over it extremely. Now, again, Dan Clancy has been sent to has been called. He's got a letter here from James Comer, the chairman of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. And they want to talk to him and several other platform CEOs. There's the letter. And I'm chuckling only because, like, Dan Clancy's been one I've been tagging on Twitter to try to do something about it, you know. I often speak against the media for sensationalizing things, and it has been sensationalized a lot. And I hope that there will be more of a call for a meeting of the minds and an end to political violence, an end to support violent commentary the way that it's been going. I don't want regulation. I'm not for regulating what comes out of people's mouths when it's just opinion. But, like I said, my rights end where yours begin. And let me add the caveat, as long as you are not doing harm. And that's a slippery slope, I understand. Who gets to decide what harm is? But I think we all know the difference between opinion and violent inciting to violence. I think we do know the difference between what is just how you feel about something and saying how you want something physically done about it, or how certain people don't deserve to live, or there should be a blight on them and wishing them harm. I think we can all tell the difference, right? And I know that there is no protection for that kind of rhetoric, because free speech is free speech, but it's not free speech without consequence. And we are all responsible for the consequences. We all have to take accountability for our contributions to it. I'm being a little careful about what I say here tonight, because I really have no intention of upsetting Charlie Kirk supporters. He died. I understand how they feel. If it was someone that I believed in, I can just imagine how I would feel. It doesn't mean I support the political ideas. It doesn't mean I think we should lay down and not believe what we believe. But we can join. We can join them in saying that violence is not the answer. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot when you know that the things that Mr. Kirk was saying that go against your core beliefs, like you feel personally attacked. It takes a lot. It does. To say, well, he didn't deserve it. No one deserves it. So take that out of it. Say, don't think about Charlie Kirk. Think about anybody. And then maybe it's easier to say no one deserves to die for their opinion. I feel for those that are overcome with the emotion of it all. I feel for those who are actually being persecuted right now for celebrating because they felt relief and they feel judged, and they are being judged. They're being judged quite harshly, because I know even my first reaction was like, oh my God, like, how can, like, no, don't, like, no, that's like so not cool. But at the same time, I kind of understand. It just has to stop all the way around. Hmm. It is. What I think I'm going to end it there. But this was an answer to numerous DMs saying, why aren't you answering me? This is the answer. If you didn't get an individual one, sorry, don't keep waiting. You probably aren't. Those that I felt needed an individual response got it. But those others who, well, I really didn't feel the need to answer them individually when they weren't really asking me my opinion on anything or where I stood. It was more a name calling, ridiculing, accusation of a message. And well, this is my response to it. If you really want to know where I stand on any political issue, just ask me. I'll tell you. I'm an open book. Just because I'm not out there waving a flag and standing on a podium doesn't mean I don't care. It doesn't mean I don't have an opinion. And first, and like, oh my God, crikey. Could you not assume? Because there's a whole bunch of you out there that just made an ass out of you and me together. Because you don't know. You don't know. Anyway, I welcome all of your opinions. Hit the comment section if you must. I will still answer all. I do absolutely appreciate everyone who's being respectful in the chat, everyone who has actually approached me in a respectful manner, who wanted to have open dialogue with this. I want to have open dialogue about this. I am not condemning anybody. You know, I understand how you all feel, and you all feel differently. Well, this is my opinion on it. And I'm expressing it. Violence is not the answer. It is never going to be the answer. I'm never going to think it's the answer. And I'm never going to condone it for any reason. An eye for an eye is a horrible thing. You can't go after evil with evil. That's one thing that Charlie said that I agree with. If you follow it with evil, it doesn't make it better. It continues the problem. It continues it. It makes it bigger. It helps it grow. And that's what I'm going to leave it on. Thank you all for coming to my bear talk. I'll get off the platform now. A normal content will resume on Friday with true crime. I'm open for discussion. Comment me respectful, and we can talk about anything. I will hear you. I will listen. Hit the comment section if you need to. All of your opinions are valid. All of them. Just don't call for violence, and we'll be okay. Have a good night, everybody.